Hello and welcome to this latest episode of my YouTube channel, Kaya Kaynak 97. I am Kaya Kaynak here with you, football.london's Arsenal correspondent, here to discuss all the things that have gone on to do with Arsenal in the past 10 days. It's been since I was last with you. A very busy few days for me in terms of personal stuff and obviously work stuff as well. Trying to give you as much good coverage of Arsenal as I can do on the football.london website. And as always, I like to start these videos just by giving that website a little bit of a plug, and then Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 97, Facebook is at Kaya Kaynak Journalist, Instagram and Threads is both Kaya Kaynak FL. And as always, again, another thing I like to do at the start of these videos is thank you all for your support. And this channel is growing so fast, so much faster than I was expecting. We're up to 3.6 thousand subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you so much, everyone who's subscribed so far. If you haven't yet, what are you doing? Please do like and subscribe this video because it means a lot to me. It really helps with the growth of the channel as well. And it really inspires me to keep on going. So, sorry I'm coming to you so late in the day. I've been at the office today, which is why I'm wearing a slightly smart shirt, which hopefully you appreciate. Not that I don't dress up for you guys, but when I'm going into the office as well, I think it's also important to try and look smart as possible, at least try and give the impression that I'm looking as smart as possible, because it's not always my forte. But yeah, what are we going to discuss today? So, a lot of things have happened with Arsenal over the past few days. Starting, of course, with their Premier League opener against Nottingham Forest, and we'll begin talking about that. The obvious big story coming out of Arsenal tonight is Jurrien Timber's injury, and I'll give you all the latest news that I have on that a little bit later on in the show. A little bit later, we'll also be discussing potential impacts of that injury, what it means for Arsenal, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, given that it's August and the transfer window is still open, I got you covered for transfer stuff. Don't worry. I've been doing a lot of phone calls. As part of the reason I've not been able to do videos is because busy doing a lot of calls, a lot of writing, a lot of all texts and WhatsApps and getting blue ticked and not getting blue ticked and yada, yada, yada. But I'm trying to give you a little bit of the update on the transfer saga as I'm aware of it, at least. Let's get started and we'll talk first and foremost about the game, because that is an important place to start, I think. And yeah, I wanted to start first of all by looking at the lineup, because going into the game, the big rumour was obviously Gabriel might be injured. It turned out he wasn't injured. It turned out it was tactical, as I broke that story just after team news came out. He's on the bench, fully fit, but Mikel Arteta decided to go with a slightly different lineup. And I suppose if you look at it, on paper, the only change is Gabriel being replaced by Eddie Nketiah. But as we can see in this lineup here, lots of things have changed. So William Saliba shifts to left centre-back, Ben White shifts from right back into right centre back. Thomas Partey goes from number 6 to right back. Rice goes from left 8 to 6. Havertz goes from centre forward to left 8. And then we get Eddie coming in up front. And what did this do for Arsenal? So Mikel Arteta spoke about it after the game. He spoke about how he wants to try and, I guess, surprise us a lot more with these kind of lineups. And I think you'd have to be a pretty brave person to suggest that this would be the game that Gabriel would miss. He's started over 70 Premier League games in a row, I believe, for Arsenal over the past few seasons. So he's someone who is obviously very important to Mikel Arteta's plans. But I think we're going to see this a lot this season, where Arteta is viewing his squad more as a sort of Swiss Army knife style of approach, where he will adapt his team based on what the game is. And obviously last season, we all knew exactly what the starting lineup was going to be, more or less. We all knew Ramsdale, White right back, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli. Now, of course, Jesus is injured, but in terms of the team we have right now, I think it's looking very, very different, and we can expect it to look very different from game to game. Arteta was asked about this after the match. He said, "Are you going to alter your lineup a lot more?" And his simple response was, "Yep." Arteta doesn't like giving too much away with these sorts of things, but I thought it was interesting, and his explanation of it, at least, was that with the way Forest were going to defend, and Forest defended very deep, as we were all expecting them to, because they're a team with one of the worst Premier League away records. I think it was the worst Premier League away record overall in the Premier League last season, possibly one of the worst in history of the Premier League. And they were coming to try and get a point. Taiwo Awoniyi was only on the bench, and we saw the threat he had later in the game, and I'll come on to the slightly undercooked second half a little bit later. But with the way Forest were going to sit back, it just made more sense, Arteta felt, to have another midfielder in there, another player to progress the ball, and another option to give Saka and Martinelli a bit more space out wide. And Thomas Partey obviously technically started as a right back, as you can see there, but he shifted into midfield, into that spot where Declan Rice is. And if you're watching, or if you're listening on a podcast, that's basically the centre of midfield, or the position we've become accustomed to seeing Thomas Partey in for the most part, and that's where he spent a lot of the first half, and it allowed Saka to go one-on-one with Forest left back, who was, I believe, Ola Aina. Maybe that was the right back. I can't quite remember right now the name of the Forest left back. I think it was Ola Aina, but I'm not 100% certain. But basically, it allowed Saka a lot of joy down the right-hand side, and Arsenal got a lot of joy down the right-hand side. Odegaard was looking really good as well, and when Partey did get into a more traditional right-back spot, those three linked up really nicely, and the goal, as it was, eventually did come from Gabriel Martinelli, but the man who scored it, the quotes from Arteta on the evolution of his starting lineup. So yeah, Gabriel on the bench, was that tactical? He was asked after the game, and he said, yeah, we expected the game to actually happen. We needed somebody else in midfield to do what we do best, to have more fluidity and occupy certain spaces in relation to how they were defending. It worked really well. And obviously, as I spoke about before, it created a lot of spaces for Arsenal, and they caused a lot of problems for Forest early doors. Now, are you trying to come up with different things to take Arsenal to the next level with your team selection? And he says, that's my job, to create bigger problems for the opponent than the ones they're creating for us, and to play the best possible way to earn the right to win the game and have the highest probability to win the game. In order to do that, we have to pick the right players to win the game every week, not only about the start, but also to finish. The players that come in during the final part of the game really helped us as well to win the game. And yeah, it was interesting, the subs that he made. Obviously brought on Gabriel, Trossard and Tomiyasu. Those were his three subs. Tomiyasu obviously came on for an injury reason that we'll discuss a little bit more in detail later. But the way Arteta's looking at games now, I think he feels he's got the strength of a squad to go into games and view them as a full 90 minutes with a game plan for various different sections of the game, various different sectors of the game, if you like. And suddenly Arsenal have gone from thinking, right, we need plan A, and if plan A doesn't work at all, so we're really screwed, to plan A might be slightly different this week, or plan A1, as Arteta put it, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. He didn't go for ABC. That's his sort of his way of viewing things. And it worked pretty well for Arsenal. They dominated Forest in the early part of the game. Forest could not get out. Obviously, they had that chance via Brendan Johnson, but that was more, I guess, by luck than design on their part. And Arsenal probably should have been ahead before they got the goal, but they did get the goal. And that was by Eddie Nketiah. A superb finish, I thought. The kind of finish that Eddie is capable of when he's feeling himself and feeling really confident. And it looked like he did in the game. I thought it was a good performance from Eddie. I didn't think it was, his best, and I didn't think he did what Gabriel Jesus does, but I don't think you'd want Eddie to do what Gabriel Jesus does, because they're different players. And as I spoke about in my last video, the way Arsenal have different options up front now means they have different players who can play in different ways and enable them to play in different ways. And I thought Eddie did quite a good job of occupying the Forest centre-backs. It was not easy as the lone man in the middle with all those defenders in the box. It was not easy to find space, but he finds that little yard in the box, and you can see the second he picks up on Gabriel Martinelli's little pirouette, whether you think that was intentional or not, the skill and the intensity is still the most important thing. We'll discuss Martinelli in a second, but the way he picks up on it is pure striker's instinct. His first thought is turn, shoot. Now he gets a little bit lucky that the deflection takes it beyond Matt Turner, but it's the luck that he deserves because of the way he's approached the game. And Arteta was really, really glowing about Eddie Nketiah after the match, and he said delighted for him because he is a role model. He was a player who was so disappointed not to play the final being Community Shield. I'm not sure I'm quite having it as a final, Mikel, but your mileage may vary on that one. What he did was he came on the field in the final and changed the game. That's number one. The second was the way he was training this week, saying, Gaffer, if you're not playing me, then you are blind. A lot of players come in and say, oh, why am I not playing? And you have to try and explain. But there are other players who come in and say, these are the reasons why I deserve to play. This is exactly what Eddie does. This is exactly what he did. And then he got on the pitch and he performs that way. He's a clear and very good example to everybody. And it's clear that Arteta loves Eddie Nketiah from the very beginning. One of his first actions as Arsenal manager was to recall Eddie from his loan spell at Leeds. And he made the quite controversial decision to drop Alex Lacazette and play Eddie in some of those games just before lockdown. And Eddie was doing pretty well in those matches, starting for Arsenal in the Premier League. And Arteta has always been keen to keep him. He's always been someone who's been in favour of giving Eddie a contract extension, even when it looked like Eddie might leave for a little while. Arteta was always saying, no, I want to keep Eddie. I want to keep him. I think he's a really good player. And I think we're starting to see the fruits of that decision, because Arsenal now are in a position where they've lost Gabriel Jesus for a number of weeks. He's expected to be back the start-ish of next month. They're hoping this week to get him outside and do a bit more load-bearing activities on that knee, but the expectation is that he'll be back next month, sometime next month, maybe after the international break. I'm not certain on the international break bit, but the expectation is next month. It's not looking too serious, and he is recovering well, as Arteta has informed us in press conferences. And without Jesus, Arsenal have Eddie, who can come in and do a really, really good job. And look, he's not settling for the backup role. He said that several times. He said it in pre-season when we interviewed him out in the States, and he sort of says it. He said it after the Monaco game as well when he captained the side. But Eddie's record when starting is pretty impressive. He scores these goals. He breaks open the game in this instance when Arsenal have been struggling to break Forest down. And from that point on, Arsenal were pretty much in control. And of course, Eddie scores the goal, and it's created by none other than Gabriel Martinelli, who I gave my man of the match to in player ratings. I'll put my player ratings in the description of the video. But I thought Gabriel Martinelli was very good. I thought he'd actually been a little bit quiet because Arsenal, most of their attack had come down the right until the goal, but he was getting a lot of space. And Gabriel Martinelli, when he's on it, he can do that kind of stuff. He's like a sort of a fly that you can't spot away for opposition defenders. And I think he recovered the ball more than anyone on the pitch. That intensity that he's got, the way he does things 100 miles an hour, I think sometimes that's to his detriment, in the sense that he'll often dribble straight to the byline and think, oh God, what am I going to do? I can't really cross it back. I don't know what to do. But sometimes it is a massive strength of his. And when he channels it in the right way, I think it is a superb strength of his. And I think he did that for the first goal against Forest. And he's in a position where he's got to get through two defenders. And there's only really one way to do it, and that is to roulette his way through. I think you call it a roulette. Sort of a Zidane turn. I've heard it described as a pirouette. I'm going to call it a roulette. And the way he gets through those two defenders is absolutely sublime. Really, really nice bit of skill. But also you notice that the way he's picked the ball up in the first place, when the ball comes out from the corner, he's fighting off much bigger defenders than him, using his pace and his power to dribble away from them down the left wing, gets in the box. I'm not 100% sure he means it in terms of his pirouette to go to Eddie Nketiah, but I think he deserves the stroke of fortune after the level of skill and determination that he's shown. So I'll give him a pass for that one, old Gabby. But yeah, Arteta was delighted with him after the game, and he said, that's Gabby. I asked him about this, actually, and he says, that's Gabby. He needs to be alive, he needs to be energetic, and he needs to go for it. And something I saw today, which I really liked, and I didn't like so much when we played Monaco a couple of weeks ago, is that he gave the ball away, how he tracked back. This is a defining moment, because when Gabby is doing that backwards, forwards, he is one of the best players and the most dangerous. When he plays in a different rhythm, no. So interesting, a little bit of a dig, I guess, at Martinelli for the Monaco game. And I guess he wasn't fully fit then, so maybe that would be his excuse. But it seems that Martinelli is the kind of guy who responds well to these kind of criticisms. And it's interesting man management from Arteta. You look at the different ways he, I guess, approaches maybe Eddie as a way to approaches Gabby here. And it's different. It's more of a stick approach than a carrot, if you like. But I think Arteta knows just how good Martinelli can be. And he's always said, guys, trust me, I love Martinelli more than you know kind of stuff, channeling his inner Pep Guardiola. And I think we're starting to see that now. And I think he gets frustrated with Martinelli when he doesn't play as well as he can do, because he sees the player and he sees the potential, and the coach within him wants to improve Martinelli to another level. But yeah, really positive display from Martinelli. I gave him a man of the match, as I said, and he was integral in the goal. The second goal then comes from Bukayo Saka. Sublime. The only word I can think to describe. Actually, I can think of several other words. Amazing, lovely, beautiful, delightful. I could keep going. I won't. But fantastic. There you go. There's another one finished from Bukayo Saka, who has got this in the locker. We've seen it from time to time. We've seen it every now and again, from time to time, where he can just cut in, given a yard of space on his left foot, and he will curl that ball right out of the reach of the goalkeeper. And as Arteta said after the game, it's not easy to beat Matt Turner from that distance. Matt Turner's a very good shot stopper, but Bukayo Saka found the one space in the goal where he couldn't reach. And if you look at it, if you watch the goal again, Saka's actually just been sort of fouled by a combination of Mangala and McKenna, I think it is, and he's just about falling over. He gets himself up and he's able to sort his feet out in time to just curl the strike beyond Matt Turner. Hats off to anyone who had William Saliba in their fantasy, because he got the assist for that goal. But it's all about Saka's finish, and I think it's a really, really impressive strike. I think it's the kind of strike that Saka's got in his locker more, and I hope we'll see it a lot more this season, and we saw this bit in pre-season a bit more, where he seems to be saying, I'm the guy. I'm going to make the difference. Yes, the game isn't maybe going the way we want to, or as well as we want to. Hang on, I'm not going to wait for everyone else to do that. I'm not going to sit back and be shy about it. I'm going to put myself forward. I'm going to be the main character. I'm going to be the protagonist, as Unai Emery would probably say, in this game. And I think he's got it in him, and he's starting to show it a lot more. And hopefully, we'll see that a lot more this season. Because if Saka wants to be considered one of the very best in the world, and I think he has that potential, and I think he's on track towards it, he needs to be getting the kind of goal return that is befitting of one of the very best in the world. Mo Salah doesn't get as many assists as Bukayo Saka does, but he gets 25, 30 goals a season, and I think Saka will feel that he can do that, and that's the kind of challenge he has to set himself. He's on track already with 1 goal in 1 game so far this season, but I think he's got it within him, and I think he's a very, 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 very promising player who's nowhere near the top of his potential, which is so exciting. And as he becomes sort of the main man at Arsenal this season, he seems to be stepping up in these moments. And I love to see that from Bukayo, because I think he's got it in him to do it. And maybe at the start he was a little bit shy, I guess, to do it, but now he really seems like he's feeling himself, and he feels that, no, screw you lot, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the guy who's going to take this. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you disagree on any of the stuff that we've been going on. I love seeing all your comments in the comment section, so please do let me know what you think about the things so far. And then moving on, obviously, the sad news was the injury. So that comes just after the break officially, although I think this photo is just before the break, and that is where a little bit of the controversy comes. So firstly, let's talk a bit about the injury itself. So it is a knee injury. I think some people in commentary were suggesting, or they were hopeful that it might be a calf. It's unfortunately a knee. Reports in Holland are suggesting it's an ACL. My understanding is that Arsenal are waiting just until they fully assess the injury to confirm that or not. But as far as I am aware, it's quite a serious injury. There are fears it could be quite a long-term one. But knee injuries take a little bit longer to assess than other parts of the body. They swell up a lot, and they've been scanning him today. They've been assessing him today. But before they confirm if it's an ACL or an MCL or something a bit bigger or smaller, they want to just be 100% sure. And there's no reason to rush this, but I think we can safely assume that Jurrien Timber is going to be out for a while, which is a real shame, because, again, he was looking really good in this match. I thought he was looking really, really promising. That inverting from the left, the way he was able to offer Arsenal an extra body in midfield and also an extra body in defence when Nottingham Forest, on the rarest of rare occasions that Nottingham Forest decided to counter-attack. He's one of them who came into the Community Shield against Manchester City, and Rice and Havertz have both played in the Premier League before, and they know what City is all about. Timber had never played really a competitive English match before. We forget that was his first competitive English match. He looked outstanding. He did not look out of place at all. And the fact that it seems he's going to be out for quite a while is such a shame, because he's been brought in as this guy who is meant to prevent Arsenal from having the depth issues that they struggled with towards the end of last season. And now suddenly they're struggling all over again. And I guess what was so good about having Timber in as an extra body was Arsenal could suffer an injury and still feel confident that they had enough options on the bench to change things. Now, they do still have the option to change things. So let's look at the left-back options they have now. So Alex Zinchenko, he is back in training. He wasn't fully available. He wasn't quite ready yet after his calf injury that kept him out of the entirety of pre-season. But he's back in training. I would expect him at this point to be involved against Crystal Palace, but I can't say that for certain. But it's looking like it's heading towards that way, that he could be involved. He'll get a full week's training under his belt. But this will be his pre-season, so I guess it's unfair to expect him to come in straight away and be at his top level, because he's been out for so long. Then there's Jakub Kiwior, played there a couple of times in pre-season, played there towards the end of last season. Decent option, good on the ball, defensively solid. Maybe not as good going forward as the other options that Arsenal possess, and I guess you could possibly say the same for Takehiro Tomiyasu. Kiwior, of course, is the only natural left-footed one of the backups as Zinchenko, if you like, that Arsenal do have. But yeah, Tomiyasu, I think, is a suitable option that Arsenal can definitely deploy if they need to, and he came on and did quite a good job in that left-back spot in the second half against Forest. And in these early games of the season where they're playing Palace and Fulham and before they play Manchester United, I guess the expectation is that maybe they can just about get by. But Tomiyasu, I think he's at his best on the right. I think he's a good defender. I think he's good on the ball. But when it comes to the final third and what Timber was offering so good, as opposed to maybe some of the other players, it's just that little bit of quality in the final third. Zinchenko does bring it. I don't know if Tomiyasu brings it to the same level. And that's not a criticism of Tomiyasu, because I think he's a superb defender. I just think he's a different player. But yeah, those are the options Arsenal have. And of course, Kieran Tierney is another player. I don't want to infringe on transfer talk, because that's going to be a little bit later in the show. But Kieran Tierney is a player who has been interested in Sociedad. I know that to be true. There are obviously the reports linking him to Newcastle resurfaced. I know that Newcastle were interested earlier in the window, but Luke Edwards at the Telegraph has put out a story today suggesting that Newcastle would be interested in a loan deal for Kieran Tierney this summer with a potential option to buy at the end of it. Now, Tierney does have 3 years left on his contract. And I think if you were to let him go this summer, Arsenal would probably be all right. I guess you want to see what the severity of Timber's injury is first. If he is out for the entire season, then maybe you look at keeping Tierney for another year just to have an extra body and an extra safe pair of hands. But Kieran Tierney wasn't even in the squad on Saturday. I think that's a sign as to how Mikel Arteta rates him in terms of options in the pecking order, which is a shame because I think Tierney's a fantastic player, but I just think the squad has maybe evolved a little bit beyond him. And Kiwior and Tomiyasu, as I said, can both play that left-back role. You could make an argument that Kieran Tierney is the fifth choice Arsenal left-back, and are you holding on to him for the remainder of the season just in case those, I mean, Timber is looking like he's going to be out for a while, but just in case those other 3 or 4 are unavailable? I'm not so sure. Is Tierney's value going to get better if you keep him and keep him on the bench? I don't think so. I think it's only going to get worse. And he's a player who has struggled in the past with injuries. He's a player who didn't play much last season. I don't think his value is as high as it would have been if Arsenal had sold him last summer. So I don't think that maybe it is wisest to hold on to Tierney just in case Timber has an injury that keeps him out for the season. Personally, I would think that Arsenal can get by with selling him, but it does, again, leave them vulnerable in the sense that I guess the issues they had last season where Saliba and Tomiyasu both got injured at the same time and suddenly the defence is in big, big trouble. Now, if Tierney goes, let's say, hypothetically, Timber is out and then Zinchenko, God forbid, gets an injury that keeps him out for a couple months. Arsenal are in a position where their only options at left-back are Kiwior and Tomiyasu, and both very good players, both can do the position pretty well, but it is a concern. And I don't know. None of the situations are ideal for Arsenal. They would, of course, love for Jurrien Timber to be fit and playing as well as he has been playing for the rest of the season. But it does seem as though he's going to be out for quite a while, which is a real shame because I think he looked like such a good player. I think I would have had him down as my signing of the season so far across the Premier League, even just after match day 1. But it does look a little bit worried for him. It does leave Arsenal with a big decision to make at left back. And I guess that is all the things to talk about. Let's talk about transfers. Let's talk about something a bit more upbeat, at least, because that was quite a downbeat and negative and depressing story when it came to Jurrien Timber. Upbeat is that David Raya is expected to join Arsenal. There are no concerns there on that front. I saw some people suggesting that Real Madrid might come in for him, given that obviously Thibaut Courtois has done his ACL as well. But I don't think, Kepa has obviously gone to Real Madrid now, and they've obviously got their player. David Raya coming in on a £3 million loan deal initially. He's extended his contract at Brentford in order to make that happen, and the option to buy is there for £27 million. Now, I've not had a chance to fully discuss this deal, and part of the reason I've not been able to do a video is because we keep getting late night David Raya updates from Arsenal. But smart business, I think, from Arsenal in the sense that they're trying to do a try before you buy kind of thing. And I've spoken to a few people at the club who say this is very similar to Martin Odegaard. This is very similar to when they brought Odegaard in, I guess, expecting in the long run to maybe buy him. Now, with David Raya, it's a little bit different in the sense that he's coming in a position where Odegaard, if he wasn't playing to his best of his ability, Arsenal could just drop him, in that case, in the 2020-21 season, play Emile Smith-Rowe or play someone else. Now, with David Raya, he sort of has to play 90 minutes or bust. It's not like another position with a goalkeeper. You can't rotate him and sort of try him a bit. But I think what it gives Arsenal now is the option to maintain their style of play, maintain plan A, as I've said before in this show, where they don't need to change anything. So if, God forbid, something was to happen to Aaron Ramsdale, then suddenly David Raya comes in, and that is, pretty much where you started. And I don't think that was the case of Matt Turner. I think Matt Turner's a fantastic goalkeeper, but he's not as good with his feet. That's just a fact. And David Raya, Jurgen Klopp has said he can play as a number 10 in the past. So, those are the kind of things that he offers to this side. I do wonder if you're spending that much hypothetically on a backup goalkeeper. That, to me, does suggest that the plan is eventually for him to come in and maybe be the number 1 and take over from Aaron Ramsdale. But Arsenal extended Aaron Ramsdale's contract only a couple months ago. And Aaron Ramsdale has come in and had competition before. Obviously faced Bernd Leno, faced Matt Turner, but coming up through the ranks at Bournemouth. He had to overcome Arthur Boric, and he's sort of dealt with competition for places before. I think he will view this as a challenge where he needs to step up his game another level. And I guess some people have been a bit critical of Aaron in pre-season and suggested that, maybe he's not been at his best. I think some of that criticism has been a little bit overblown because they played on some pretty horrific pitches out there, and it's not very easy to be good at distributing when you're on some disgusting pitches. But I think Aaron would say that he's not been at his best, but he was the hero in the Community Shield. He was the hero in the Emirates Cup. By the way, that's 2 pieces of silverware, if you want to count them, that Arsenal have won this season. And he's got the number 1 spot. David Raya is coming in and he'll have to try and take it off him, and that's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But the plan is, I think, to see the two compete against each other. Maybe in the first half of the season, we'll see Ramsdale keep the Premier League games and Raya come in for the Carabao Cup and Champions League matches. And then maybe around halfway through the season, you start to assess, you start to think, who is my number 1? Who am I going to play? That would be how I'd expect it to pan out. But, Mikel Arteta's pulled a few surprises with his transfers in the past, and he didn't waste any time getting Aaron Ramsdale in between the sticks ahead of Bernd Leno. So maybe this is something he'll look to do straight away. Maybe it will take a little bit more time. But I'm expecting that to be announced within the next 24 hours. But I did say that last week. I was told that last week, and it obviously ended up being delayed. I was told that by a very reliable source. But I have been told by a very reliable source that it should be within the next 24 hours, David Raya. The intricacies of the loan with an option to buy contract and what's taking so long to sort out. But he should be signed hopefully within the next 24 hours. And then Arsenal can go and start having training this week and hopefully involved against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park next Monday. So what else is going on in terms of transfers? A little bit of outgoing business. So I have it as roughly 9 players who could leave Arsenal between now and the end of the transfer window. The transfer window shuts on September 1st, and those players are as follows. So let's go through individually. I've already done Kieran Tierney. As I said, interest in Sociedad, reports today linking with Newcastle. I think personally, if Arsenal can let him go right now with a loan with a view to buy, I think they should do it. I think that'd be smart business. But let me know in the comments if you disagree, if you want to keep him as a sort of safety policy, because he's a fantastic player and the Arsenal squad is certainly stronger for having him around. So who else? Arthur Okonkwo, as I reported exclusively earlier at the start of the summer, he has interest from teams across the continent and some teams in England, but he will be allowed to leave on a permanent basis if the right offer comes in for him. He's got 1 year left in his contract. He's only going to be third choice at Arsenal this season, obviously with Raya coming in and Ramsdale being there and Karl Hein being there as a third choice goalie. And so I think he is likely to leave permanently before the end of the window. Alex Runarsson. I don't quite know what Arsenal are going to do with him. Maybe they keep him around as a third choice goalie and loan Karl Hein. I personally would be in favour of that, but he's got 1 year left on his deal. Now is the time for Arsenal to sell. I don't think they'll be interested in a loan. He's obviously spent the past couple of years out on loan in Turkey, but I don't think Arsenal will look to do that this year. They'll want to sell, and if they can't sell, maybe they'll look at contract termination. I'm not sure on that one. That's just conjecture, but I'd be surprised if we see him staying. Moving into defence, so Cedric Soares, as I've reported on football.london, has interest from all 3 of Portugal's big sides. So that's Porto, Benfica, and Sporting Lisbon. There's also Villarreal in Spain who have shown interest in him. There's been informal contact from those clubs with the agent, and there is a hope that the bid will come in permanently before the end of the window. Maybe those teams are sort of planning to lowball Arsenal with an offer. Cedric's again another who's only got 1 year left on his deal and would like to play. Arsenal have sort of indicated to him that through their, I guess, technical decisions, as it was described to me, by not including him in the squad, that maybe they would like to move on without him. So those are the kind of things that are going on with him. With Nuno Tavares, I'm aware that there is interest from Wolfsburg. Werder Bremen have also shown interest. They've made an approach to Arsenal for him. Apparently, there's a lot of teams who are interested in him. But as far as I'm aware, the player's side, he would like to stay in the Premier League. He's keen to stay in England. And West Ham have, I guess, reportedly shown an interest. As far as I'm aware, they've not made any concrete approaches or bids thus far. But that seems to be a side of interest in England. And Tavares' preference is to stay in England, stay in the Premier League. Obviously had a good loan spell in France last season. But Germany is where I've got confirmed interest in Nuno. But yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. 2 years left on his deal. So again, Arsenal would want to sell. Let's keep going. So Rob Holding is another of the 9, if you like. Not included in the squad. That was purely a case of selection on Saturday. Reports have emerged this morning that maybe Aston Villa might be interested in him. I guess that link kind of makes sense because Unai Emery worked with him before he did his ACL the first time. And, I think Holding made a pretty good impact on the Arsenal team in those games where he's playing in a back three with Mustafi and Socrates. I was looking this up earlier. Arsenal they've moved on defensively, but that was the side they were playing with before. And I would personally be, I guess, from Holding's perspective, surprised if he wanted to stay. I think it's time for him to maybe move on. And if he's not making matchday squads, it's probably an indication that he's going to not be picked too much. And I guess before maybe he can make peace with it, not playing much because you're on the bench and you're still involved in the match day. If you're not involved in the match day at all, perhaps that's the sign that, it's time to move on. And I think for the good of his career, I think he should go and be first choice someone, because I definitely think he's good enough to be it. And if he were to go to Aston Villa, he could join his good friend Callum Chambers and they'd be playing European football in the Conference League, and lots of good things I think could come out of that. So to me, that link makes sense. But like I say, that's just a report. Not had anything concrete on that, but I will try and chase that up for you. That makes 5, I believe. So let's keep going. Albert Sambi Lokonga. Nothing new on him. The Burnley talks appear to have gone a little bit cold, I guess. I've seen a report today from some very reliable people that Monaco would be interested in bringing him in. Monaco were interested in bringing him in even before he went to Arsenal. They were interested in him when he was at Anderlecht. So that would be a good out, I guess, for Arsenal. Burnley have gone on to sign quite a few midfielders. They've signed Sander Berge, got a good, I think, agreed deal with Aston Villa for their Aaron Ramsey, not Arsenal's Aaron Ramsey. And you start to think, with all those midfielders coming into Burnley, would Sammy be still high on their priority list? I don't know, but he's got 3 years left on his deal, so there's a little bit more room for manoeuvre when it comes to him. A little bit like Kieran Tierney when we discussed him earlier. The loan with an option to buy is a kind of a thing that's a little bit more on the table as opposed to the guys who've only got 2 years left on their deal. Who else? So Nicola Pepe is number 7 on the list of 9 that I can think of. I'm trying to remember if I've forgotten anyone. Nope, don't believe so. Nicola Pepe. So nothing new on him. Besiktas, obviously very interested. Arsenal willing to terminate his contract in order to facilitate a deal. I can't see any way that he stays at Arsenal beyond the transfer window expiration. He's still not joined up with the team at London Colney. He's recovering from a knee injury is sort of the line get given. But the fact that he's not joining up with them at all does suggest that he's definitely not in the plans. Big wages for Arsenal to get off the books if they can get a fee for him, but they would be willing to terminate the contract. There's space in the budget for that to go ahead. Another one is, so let's go through it. So I've said Tierney was number 8. So number 9, Flo Balogun, and I guess that's the highest ticket item that Arsenal have to sell in the remainder of this window. They've knocked back a bid from Monaco, which I've seen reports suggesting that it was around the €40 million mark. It's my understanding that they wouldn't necessarily be tightly fastened to the £50 million fee. I think they'd be willing to let him go at the right price, or what they deem as the right price. But West Ham have been reportedly linked. As far as I know, the only 2 concrete pieces of interest that I've been made aware of are Inter Milan and Monaco. Monaco obviously put that bid in, rejected. Inter Milan interested, but there are questions as to whether they'll be able to, match the financial demands that Arsenal are putting on the table. And that's kind of it in terms of the transfer side of things. Arteta has already indicated in his last press conference that he's not expecting anyone else to come in as things stand, but maybe Jurrien Timber's injury will sort of push Arsenal into a bit of action in the market. I'd be surprised if it did, just because, like I say, they've got so many numbers at the back now. They've got good defensive options. And yes, losing Timber will be a massive blow, but I think they'll be just about all right in terms of numbers. I think you can still afford to let Kieran Tierney go. You probably still afford to let Rob Holding go, but it does leave you a little bit more bare, and maybe Arteta will want to keep those guys around. But the interest is there in them. That's kind of it, guys. Thank you again so much for watching. As ever, thank you so much for subscribing, liking. Please do keep doing that. Please do keep following me on all the threads, all the social medias that are going along the bottom. So it's Twitter at Kaya Kaynak 97, Facebook is at Kaya Kaynak Journalist, Instagram and Threads are both at Kaya Kaynak FL. Until then, I'll try and do these a little bit more regularly. So my plan is to try and do these once on a Monday, once on a Friday, And then if it's midweek games, we'll switch it up a little bit more. But the plan is to try and get it to you as at least 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. So that is what the schedule is going to be. I hope you're enjoying the shorts as well. Reacting to team news, please do let me know, because I'm sort of feeling my way in the dark on this. I don't fully know what I'm doing. I need your help to let me know what you like, because I'm doing this for you at the end of the day. That's the most important thing, that you guys are happy with the content I'm putting out. So please do let me know in the comments what you're thinking. Get your questions in. I'll try and do as many of those, get as many of those answered. My plan is on the football.london website, by the way. On Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a Q&A. So I'll put a link out to that on here. I'll put a link out on my social media, on all the other stuff as well. But get your questions in there, and I'll answer as many of them as possible. And also in the comment section, please do keep getting your questions in to that spot as well. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for getting involved. Thank you very much for supporting me. Lots of love to all of you. I hope you have a lovely Monday evening. I hope the news on Timber doesn't hit you too hard. But yeah, it's a little bit of a concern, I think, for Arsenal. Until then, though, until we get some more positive news, hopefully, I'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much, and goodbye.